Hi, I'm Lavonda with Homeschoolific, and we've got a great treat today. A good friend of mine slash brother created this amazing curriculum that I wanted to introduce you all to, and just kind of get more information for me and for everyone. This is Jason Vaughn, and he's the creator of 87 Sound Academy. So, Jason, tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself. Well, I know you. Introduce yourself to the people.
Um, Thank you for that introduction. Yeah. So my name is Jason Vaughn. Um, I am a musician and music producer and audio engineer, um, and now an educator. So I started out super young learning music when I was like a toddler, 3 or 4 years old, something like that. Um, I started learning piano and I took lessons all throughout elementary and middle school and up until I got to high school. And then I started actually teaching piano in high school, um, and did that all the way up until I left to go to college. So around the time I got to college, really in high school, I would say around 13 or 14, I started getting more into music production, along with piano. And I was homeschooled up until the fifth or sixth grade, something like that. Um, and so around that time, I started getting more into like computer music, which I mean back then wasn't really a whole lot of anything compared to
Right.
what it is now. um, but yeah, and I just fell in love with it. And so by the time I got to college, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to school, came home, started working in some studios, eventually um, just kind of worked my way up to working on bigger and bigger projects until I started, working with more like major artists, stuff that was on radio and, traveling and touring and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of how it went for me.
That's awesome. I'm curious, what type of kind of like system or like app, like what were you working with as far as like creating music and on your sound engineering skills back in what the late 90s, early 2000s? What
In
was
the in the beginning, I had this program called Hip Hop EJ, and it was basically it was basically just loops. So like pre-recorded loops that you could take and just kind of like match them up together and like make songs out of them basically. But there wasn't a whole lot of you couldn't really manipulate anything. It was basically just like you take the boop or whatever. You just kind of put it all together. So yeah, that was how I started. That's how I started learning.
Wow, that's so cool. Um, I love just kind of hearing and seeing the journey because it's been like a long journey and I've watched like all the hard work that you put in and you're just obsessed, right? Like I think in order to have like the level of success that you had, you have to just obsess over this thing that you're passionate about. And I've seen you do that. And to be able to take all that experience and now create, a curriculum, like that's pretty cool. And then just kind of full circle, like you being homeschooled and now creating a curriculum that homeschoolers can use or kids that are not homeschooled, right?
Right.
This could be something that somebody does in the summertime. But anyway, I don't
Mhm.
want to jump ahead, but just kind of wanted to get a background of like what it looked like for you so that everyone could kind of see where you started and where you're at and where it's going.
Yeah.
So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you was if you could just kind of give an overview of the program that you created its structure.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so I'll give an overview first of kind of like the more broad vision that I have for it, and
Mhm.
then kind of nail it down to what is actually available right now. Um, So my vision for it is basically to develop a like kind of full stop music, um, online music like program to where if you have a child that's interested in learning music production, learning audio engineering, learning how to play an instrument, to where they'll be able to do all of that with this program. Uh, so right now, we have one music production course, which is the introductory course, which anybody would have to take anyway before you move on to the more advanced stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but essentially, we have level one, two, and three that will be kind of rolling out here over the next year or so.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, what inspired you to create like this specific program for high schoolers or potentially for advanced junior high schoolers? Like, what did you always know? Like, I'm going to create these courses, and they'll, I'm assuming that a lot of it was if any adult can kind of run through this, right? It's if they're functioning at around a high school level at least. But
Right.
what made you decide, like, I think students would benefit from this program?
So I was thinking about it kind of from like, I was thinking about myself at like 15 or 16. And so I ended up going to an audio school that was very expensive. Uh, and myself and a lot of other people that I went to that school with, we all often questioned if it was worth it, you know? Just,
Like most people that go to college and get degrees.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think just because it just didn't feel like it was a necessary risk for how volatile of an industry like the
Mm,
entertainment industry can be, right? And so I felt like it really didn't take all that. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, well, if I can create a program where the knowledge is on that same level and introduce a kid to it in 10th grade or 11th grade instead of, I mean, like I was in school with guys who were almost 30 years old, you
wow.
know, who ended up spending the money going through the program and then not even really using it. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, if you can try it out at 15, 16, then you'll know if this is for you or not. We're not
Right.
finding out when you're at a school paying all this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think of so many kids like trying to use these high school years as a time to test out different types of career paths,
Yeah.
especially things that they might be interested in to see if it works for them. Like, so a course like this would be great. Like, let me test it out and see if I need to spend, tens of thousands,
Mhm.
later on, or what skills do I need? Like, am I interested in this? Is it necessary? And I think that because of the way that you made the program just accessible to beginners, how would that benefit them if they have like no prior experience in music production? What if they're just like, this looks cool. I see people mix into it. I don't know what kids think, but
Mhm.
this looks cool. Think I might be interested, like, but I have no prior knowledge or skill.
Yeah, so I designed the 1.0 course specifically for that. So it literally goes from the bare bone basics of like, oh, this is what audio is, or this is what an audio signal
Mm.
is, this is how it's generated, this is what a frequency is. This is, it literally goes to the very, very basics and it kind of builds up from there. So somebody could come in with no prior knowledge or even musical skill and be able to take the course.
Oh, nice. So you pretty much answered my next question about what the audio basics course kind of covers, and why it's important for the students to start there,
Mhm.
even if they have a little bit of experience. Would
Yeah.
you still recommend them like
Oh,
start here?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, how does the program kind of introduce students to music theory, and how does the knowledge benefit aspiring producers?
That's a great question. I don't think that you have to be a musician to be a producer, but
Mm.
at the end of the day, I realize that I'm teaching this course from my perspective, and I'm a musician. And so I think that you should at least have some type of music theory knowledge so that if you're working with musicians or it's music at the end of the day. So you need to have
Right.
kind of basis or foundation of knowledge of what you're doing. So um, I go over kind of um, a basic overview of like kind of like music. It's kind of like music theory 101,
Okay.
Um, and I put it in the course as it's not necessarily like you have to get this and understand it 100%, but it's almost like it's kind of there for reference.
Yeah.
But it's that will be one of the parts of the course where after you finish, you'll probably have to go back and like watch that one a couple times because music theory is not really something you're gonna learn in a week or 2 weeks. It takes time to really understand it. I put like um piano drills and just on scales and all that
Ah.
stuff in there. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like even that could spark for somebody that wants to dig deeper or learn more about playing the instrument.
So what if they don't play like the piano?
Hmm.
Is this could this be for someone who's like a guitarist
Hmm.
or it's okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So can you explain like the focus of the 2.0 level course and how it builds on the fundamental first course?
So 1.0 just kind of lays a foundation, right? So when you're dealing with music production, you have so like for example, um compression, right? That's a tool that we use in music production. So we
Mm.
introduce it in 1.0, but there's like so many levels to what you can do with that tool, right? There's like maybe 4 or 5 different types of compression that you can do to a sound in a song or whatever. And so in 2.0, we kind of get into those aspects of it. You know what I mean? That's kind of moving more into the realm of like if you want to be a professional level like engineer, these are some of the things you would need to know how to do.
Okay. So would you recommend once a student has finished the intro course to move on to the 2.0
Yeah.
or
I think
okay.
if it's almost like the difference between a kid who wants to play guitar and a kid whose parents are forcing them to play guitar. I think 2.0 would be for the student who really wants to learn it. Because
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't, it's gonna be really tedious.
Okay.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So um would you, if you had to suggest like a realm of kind of like learning, because you have your self-led course
Hmm.
option and then you've got the instructor-led
Hmm.
option for the 2.0, would you suggest that it be that they do the instructor-led?
The instructor led would be a lot better for 2.0, in my opinion, just because the concepts do take a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a personal approach. You know what I mean? Like being able to
Yeah.
ask me a question as opposed to just like watching the videos.
Yeah.
Even though the lessons are very thorough, it's just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I see it. I was kind of thinking of like online courses, and then like going into like a class and having a professor kind of be there and give the lectures. And there's honestly there's a level of just unimportance I've noticed when you're taking an online course, like, and there's no teacher that looks you in the eye sometimes, you're
right,
just like, ah, I turned it in.
right, right.
That's why I was never gonna like I tried it and I did okay. I just didn't enjoy it. But I see that, in our kids, right? Not necessarily all of them, but like as our oldest, I've noticed like the difference between having even like her like the online class that she takes currently is there's no instructor like not even like a live video. And they have that
Mhm.
option, but we chose this route because it was a bit more flexible with her schedule. But
Mhm.
I realized not a good idea.
Mhm.
Because yeah, there's something I think it's easy to detach as things get more difficult
Right.
um from like the learning
Yeah.
process and what things that are important. It's easier to like have those gaps.
Mhm.
um but I was curious, like, what kind of music business knowledge do the students kind of take away in that advanced course?
So I wanted to include at least like the basics of understanding like music publishing, right?
Mm,
Because that's important for, somebody might go through 2.0, and I mean by the end of 2.0, the final project for that course is basically creating a song and recording it and mixing it like,
wow, yeah.
professional, you know what I'm saying? So that might be something by you might want to take your final project and put it up on iTunes or something like that. And so I want to
Right.
include at least the basics of like knowing how to do that, knowing how to do your copyrights, all of that stuff.
So like the one of the courses focuses on preparing for a live performance, which I've watched one of your videos on YouTube and
Mhm.
how like you broke down a performance for I think it was her that was doing a performance, and I was just like in shock because I had it was so technical. Um, it wasn't even the one I really couldn't like physically, like mentally keep up with
Mhm.
what you were doing, but you had taken your time to like break it all down, and I was just like, that's a lot, and I'm just watching like how thorough this is and like the details. And but as you started doing it, I was like, oh wow, like it started to make more sense. But I
Mhm.
realized that the live performances is not like you're not DJing. Like
Mhm.
that is not what's happening up there.
Yeah.
It's not like a chit,
Right.
it's not, none of that's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what people think. You're just back there being, being a DJ, and that's not what it is. So
Mhm.
like what unique skills or insights do the students gain from the course that's like preparing them for a live performance or music for a live performance?
Yeah. So that what you're talking about is called playback engineering,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
it's a very kind of little known little niche in the live music space. And I didn't find out about it until I started doing it. And I went on tour doing that for about 5 years. Um, and um, I worked with her, I worked with Charlie Puth, I worked with Janelle Monáe and Ari Lennox, and um, I was just all over the place for like, about 4 or 5 years. So uh that was really kind of my first taste of real stability in the music
Mm,
industry, like financially.
yeah.
And that's what prompted me to create that course, because I realized like there's so many, people out here in the space, who are musicians and producers and engineers who don't even know that this thing exists.
Mm,
So I wanted to just kind of bring more light to it. It's such a great way to like kind of mix it up. You can, you get bored of just sitting in the studio all day. You can go go on tour for a year or something like that, make a whole bunch of money,
yeah.
come back home. Um, but even on a smaller scale, it's a great course for someone who wants to just learn how to make their own show better, right? So
Mm,
say a student or a group of students have a band or something like that, and they just want to figure out how to make their show more professional. Like that course would teach you how to do that as well.
wow. Like when you said that, it kind of reminded me of like our church and how like this could
Great
be
example.
something that
Yeah.
would they could really utilize.
Churches, yeah.
And because sometimes we sound like great, our praise team and the worship team, and they sound great on like in the service for the most part, and then they're and then online sometimes it's not always great, but they're tweaking it. It's getting better.
Hmm.
But I was like, wow, that this actually sounds like that would even benefit them in that way. I'm sure a lot of churches could use. I mean, with the now, since all the churches are online, like every church, no matter how great or small, they all have an online presence. They're all going
Hmm.
live on YouTube or Facebook or whatever. Like, and I see so many of our young people at church, like teenagers in the AV, in the booth back there doing doing helping with all those things and being trained in that way. I think, man, that would how great would this benefit them as they're trying to like hone those skills in, and then they could market themselves to other churches if they desire to, or to,
Hmm.
even if within their own church. Because I think that's the easiest way to kind of start without, when you're at church, nobody really like, he's doing the best he can. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna really critique it, a team back there. They're like, man, look at him.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Like no one's going hard on them like that. But it's
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
to like see them like that's a lot of times that's where a lot of young people get to hone the ones that do go kind of honing their skills, whether they're singing or playing,
yeah.
watching you play for years
Yeah, that's how I'm about to say that's how it was for
at
me. Yeah.
church, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So how do you incorporate like even your personal experiences in the teaching process, and how
Uh,
do you think the students will benefit from it?
I do it constantly. So I was watching, just kind of going through the lessons recently, and I realized that, like, wow, I talk about my experiences a lot, and it kind of happens in I filmed everything. I created the lessons as if I was like doing a live like Zoom or something like that. Like I envisioned that I was talking to students, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I talk about my experience constantly, and um, I think the biggest benefit. So I came up like basically, I didn't really ever have mentors in the music industry, not until I was kind of already in it. But like coming up, I didn't really have somebody who was at like a way higher level than me that could kind of let me know, like, hey, this is what you need to watch out for. This is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always been something I've been passionate about is, just being able to be that kind of example, because I understand the entertainment industry in general does have somewhat of a stigma on it. Um, and I mean, I even had kind of some pre-existing beliefs about it before I got in it. And once I got in it and realized like, oh, well, there's a lot of good people in here. There's a lot of like
Right.
a lot of Christian people in here. There's a lot of people who like have a very strong faith and like personal code who are not being swayed by all this other stuff that's going on. Um,
Yeah.
and until I was there was no way I would have known, um, that existed. You know what I mean? And so I try to kind of continue that to show that, like, you know, this, stuff you hear on YouTube is not necessarily it's not all there is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right. It's
there's
not a
good, there's
blanket.
good, there's good here too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not
Yeah.
everybody's not out wilding
Yeah.
out.
Right.
So yeah, that's good that the kids understand that, and also that there's been a journey, right? And so like you've got so many years, because how long has it been?
I mean, if I count from when I went to school, it's been 15 years.
Oh, but it's been before that though.
Yeah. I mean, even yeah, for sure before that. I mean,
So
I
it's like
think,
we're looking at 20. The good,
yeah,
just
yeah.
okay. I don't want to
15
ask. I'm like,
plus.
because
Yeah.
how old are you? I didn't want to ask
I'm
that.
37. I'm 37 now. I was 22 when I went to
Yeah.
school.
Well,
Yeah.
absolutely then.
Mhm.
A good 20 years easily
Yeah.
plus.
Easy. Yeah.
Wow. So as far as software, I know just hear you talk about what was it? Hip hop DJ.
Hip
What were
hop
you using?
EJ. Hip hop EJ.
Back in the day? What software and tools? Because I know you that's not what you're using for this. So what software and tools do the students kind of get hands-on experience with throughout the program?
So I created the course to work with any software that a student will want to use, right? So I focus more on the concepts than on the actual
Mm,
software.
okay.
Because all the softwares pretty much do the same thing, just do it in different ways. I do recommend, well, there's ones that I don't recommend, I would say. I'm
And
using
that's
Logic.
included.
What's
Is
that?
that and that's included in the course? You say like, okay, here's some ones that I saw
Yeah.
that there were some recommendations for.
Yeah. So I'm using Logic Pro to
Hmm.
teach the course. Um, Honestly, for 1.0, you could get away with using a free software like GarageBand. Um,
Mm,
but anything past that, you would need to. So that's why I say for 1.0, because for some students, it's going to be kind of like, I'm just filling this out and seeing how I feel about it. Obviously, I know that there's going to be some students who are already making music, right?
yeah.
So come in with their whole setup already ready to go. Um, and so if you're not one of those, you're just kind of filling it out, then yeah, you could get away with using GarageBand, um, or something like that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, are there any other things that, you know, not saying I'm going through the course, but let's say I'm going through the course and I don't have anything, like what would you say, like make sure you don't need a lot, but this is what you need to like make it through.
Yes. So you're gonna need a computer or a laptop or computer. Uh,
Hmm.
you're going to need the software. Um, you're going to need a MIDI controller of some kind. So hold on, I can show you what I got sitting here on my desk. You don't necessarily need something this big, but this is what I have here.
Okay.
So you need something like that. Um, it could also be like a drum pad, that'll work too if that's more your thing.
Oh,
You're gonna
nice.
need headphones or speakers, whatever
Okay.
whatever your household can tolerate. Uh,
Headphones.
right. And then optionally, you would need an audio interface. So, um, and that is, it's not, you don't necessarily need the audio interface, but it's better. Oh, you need a microphone too, something like that.
Okay.
This is
Oh
cheap.
yeah, just something simple.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
And
I think that's good to know because it's like, hey mom, can I do this thing? And you're just like, yeah, go do it. And they're just like, I got the computer.
yeah,
Like, can I tap on the keys? Like, what are we?
right,
But
right.
yeah, that's good to know. Like the things that will be needed, and a lot of times, like you said, like if there's a kid that's interested in this, they probably already have these things at home
Hmm.
if they're dabbling in this, in music production, and I think, I'm like looking over at Mike's my husband. For y'all who don't know, my husband's name is Mike, and this is Mike's brother, also my brother. But I'm looking at Mike's setup over here, and he literally, I think the only thing he's missing is the MIDI.
Hmm.
It like literally everything else he's got.
Yeah.
So many kids are doing this kind of stuff
Hmm.
nowadays. Like even if
Already.
they're just like, streaming, playing live streaming games or whatever, like most of these things, like most of these teenagers already have.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's nice to know. Um, but I was curious about like just once they kind of get this skill and they're learning and building, what would you say, what kind of opportunities would there be for students to kind of work in like on real world projects such as creating music or collaborating with artists? I know like YouTube is a great platform to kind of like start putting their things out on, even if they don't have anybody to collaborate with.
Hmm.
But what would you say?
So that was one of the things that I'm, hopeful will happen is that the students will start to collaborate with each other, right? So
Mm,
there is a community forum, kind of chat thing built into the
right.
platform. And so that's definitely something that I encourage and will encourage. them to connect with each other, um, and there's a collaboration lesson where there's some software that I go through to show you how you can collaborate with people remotely, right? So like if I'm
Wow.
here and you're there, we can work on music together, right? Using there's certain apps that let you do that. Um, so yeah, that's I think that's the best way because I know in music sometimes people always think about like, oh, I need to like reach out to this person or like I want to work with Beyonce or something, and it's like, well, the right way to do it is to kind of reach the people that you can reach the person that's next to you, and then you guys build and make each other better about, working together over time.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. I was
Yeah.
recently listening, I don't know, it was like a short or something like that on YouTube, and they were just saying about how no, it was a book I'm reading, how Mr. Beast had gotten to, him his as he was kind of starting out, it was him and a few other friends, and they would go on and um like Zoom or like whatever calls they could do and be on there all day and just like obsessing over how to make this work, what kind of videos and this and that. So they were like no, nobodies, but they're coming, every single day for 1,000 days. It was just something crazy
Hmm.
every single day for years until they all reached this million subscribers or whatever it was. And I thought that was so interesting that you're saying that, like reaching out to people that are essentially on your level, growing together
Right.
and building from there. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Because people are always looking for like someone to like give them a leg up, right? And
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
everybody's going to want to take that chance.
Mhm.
So, like, what career opportunities are available to students who complete the program? So, like, obviously not right away. They're not going to finish the intro and then start working, but
Right.
as they progress and they become really good, like what do you think would be like a entry level type of career opportunity
Hmm.
for someone who's kind of honed this skill really
Hmm.
nicely?
Yeah. So it's such a dynamic space, right? So I was just talking to somebody, um, a friend of mine who used to do a bunch of different audio stuff at Dad's church at Palm Valley. And
Mm,
he's now like he like works for Dave Ramsey now. Like
yeah,
it's like when I heard that, I was like, what? But then
yeah,
I thought about it and it's like, okay, well, yeah, what does Dave Ramsey do? Like he has a podcast, he has um, he writes books, he does audio books,
right.
he does big seminars and live events. Like
Mm-hmm.
for an audio guy, like
Jackpot.
you know what I'm
It's like
saying?
jackpot.
And I had never even thought about anything like that before. So it was just
Mm,
like, oh, there's a whole nother. I think you kind of hit it on the head just talking about honing your skills because once you do that, the opportunities will come. Like me becoming a playback engineer and going on tour, I didn't even know that existed, right?
right.
I just happened to meet somebody who kind of saw what I was good at and, was just like, yo, I think you will be really good at this. And
Mm.
I'm like, what is it? He's like, just come to my house. I'm gonna show you. I was like, okay. And then like 2 weeks later, I was on tour. I was like,
Wow.
okay. but but it was like you said, it was the years of preparation of getting to that
Absolutely.
point because it was like, okay, yeah, I can pick this up easily because it's basically the same thing I've been doing the last 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
doing it kind of in a different context, right? Um,
Right.
so entry level wise, internships are gonna likely be the best way to go. Uh,
Nice. Yeah.
and I think that's another great thing about this program is that this can give you a foundation enough for you to be confident enough to go out to a studio and get an internship, right? Just after finishing this, you may be able to just, I mean, if you wanted to go to audio school after doing this program, you absolutely could. Um, and I mean, I say this humbly, but you would. probably know more than everybody else there. You probably would know more than some of the teachers, just being honest.
Mm,
I'm actually teaching one of my one-on-one students right now is a student at Full Sail, which is where I went to school.
right. That's nuts. And
And
the fact that they felt the need to reach out to you, like,
that's
I know this ain't enough. I need to help. I need the help.
and that's exactly what he told me. He said, I feel like he said, I'm almost a year in and I don't feel like I really learned anything.
Wow.
And he told
And
me,
it's because it's such a fast paced program, the amount, like the money it's a private education money.
mhm, yeah,
After a year, I feel bamboozled.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
And I mean, he told me, he said after the first 30 minutes of our like first lesson, I used some stuff that you told me immediately and like it made my music better, you know.
Wow.
And so it's like that's what I mean when I say, okay, we can just like so we're not about to have these kids out here spending $80,000, it's just it doesn't take all that, it just really does.
Right.
Sorry, Full Sail, but
I can tell earlier you were trying not to say the name, so I wasn't going to bring it up either. You're like,
yeah, it's
here
fine.
it is.
Yeah, it
It
is
just
what it
came
is.
out.
Cat's out the bag. Y'all not the only ones doing it. Y'all, yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of other places doing the same
y'all
thing.
overcharge. Y'all trying to
Same,
piece
yeah,
these kids
same
too.
results. But I'm
Hmm.
curious, like where do the kids even go? Like, all right, is this like an Indeed type of search? Like, if I'm looking for an internship at a student, like, where would you suggest that once someone has gotten like a good grasp on um the production part of it, the music production, and now they want
Hmm.
to look for an internship? Like, where do you even look for that?
I mean, I, honestly, Indeed is a place where like you may be able to find some of those opportunities, but Indeed, it being, I mean, yeah, I guess technically it could, but I feel like you would have a better more success kind of just doing the groundwork, doing some footwork, like actually showing up
Mm,
at these places and finding the owner or the manager and just talking to people.
oh wow,
Um,
yeah. Okay.
um,
So Google search local studios
yeah,
and
for real. I
then
mean,
just show up. But it doesn't
yeah.
even have to be like a studio. It could just be a place that needs sound engineers or, sound production teams, that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
if you know that they're doing that kind of stuff, would that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of a secret to this industry is is really just you're really just making friends, honestly. So if you if you can make friends, then you can find your way into like, into these opportunities. Um,
Right. Wow.
but I mean, like you said, obviously in the beginning, you are going to have to be willing to like just work for free and do that kind of grunt work for a while just to get the experience.
Yeah,
Um,
I think this is not one of those things where people are like, we trust your resume, just come on, like we trust, just come on and start working. People want to see that like you have a
mhm,
level of talent that
yeah.
could accomplish what they need done. But yeah, the intern, I think that's a great way to kind of start. And your program, it sounds, I mean, I was looking through the lessons. I was like, this is insane. Um, just like the details, and I
Mhm,
understand like if even in the video that I saw, like see like watching you the playback video that you did, I'm just like, this is his students are getting, this was just a taste, that was a taste, like for a student to get an even more thorough level of of being taught that what the sound mixing engineering and sound production and all the and music theory, like it just breaks it down. One, I was just really proud to see like all that you're doing and seeing
mhm,
what you're turning it into. And like, even once this, one kind of like season of your career, once you started to transition into a different season, it was just like, all right, I'm going to do this now. I want to do this. Now I've learned this. I've mastered this. I've done this. I've traveled. I've experienced these things. Now I need to teach it to other people.
mhm.
Um, So I wanted you to kind of elaborate on just some of the roles. So like your mixing
Okay.
engineer, or live playback engineer,
Hmm.
just for the viewers who might not be familiar with
Yeah.
those like terms.
Hmm. Yeah. So, studio engineer, there's a handful of different roles that a person could play in the studio. So, you usually have um, recording and mixing are two different phases of like the studio process. So, the recording is when a person actually comes in, a person or an artist or a band or whatever actually comes in and actually records the music. Um, the mixing phase is when they take that recording and they send it to somebody that's gonna clean it up and edit it and like make it basically what they call radio ready, right? Uh,
Mm,
kind of polish it up, make it sound like all pretty and stuff, right? So you have on the recording side, you have um, the main like head recording engineer who's going to be kind of like pushing all the buttons, and then you have they'll usually have an assistant. This depends on the size of the studio and the size of the project. Maybe one or two assistants who are helping like just like hook everything up, set everything up. But on the mixing side, you have your mixing engineer, and at times they might have assistants too. Again, just depends on the size of the project. So that's studio stuff. Live wise, you have playback engineer,
hmm.
which is what I do. Um, which is like you said, it's kind of like a DJ, but not really. It's basically the person that helps you help to put uh, any pre-recorded parts of a live show. That's the playback engineer is kind of handling all of that, right? But then
Hmm.
you also have mixing engineers who mix the stage, right? So you have what they call a monitor engineer who is going to mix all the people on the stage, right? They might have little speakers in front of them, or they might have
Oh,
little
the earpieces.
yeah earpieces in, and so there's somebody whose job is to mix the show for them. And so if you're the
Oh,
artist or the singer, he's mixing in real time to make sure that you can hear everything clearly, because how else are you going to sing your song right if you can't hear yourself, you can't hear your band, you can't hear all the music, right? So there's somebody
hmm.
that's doing that literally for every person on the stage at the same time. um
Wow.
yeah, that's a really hard job, but they make a lot of money. So so I don't feel that bad for them. And then also in live shows you have the front of house engineer who's mixing the show from the audience perspective. So he's
Mm,
it's coming out of the big speakers. Uh,
okay.
so anytime you go to a concert, if you look usually right in the middle of the venue, wherever that is, depending on how big the venue is, you're going to see a little space carved out and it'll be like a big board and it'll be a guy sitting back there just doing stuff. Um, and so he's controlling what everybody is hearing.
Mm,
So those are the main like engineering roles that you'll see in a live show. Um, Aside from that, you the just the skill set of understanding recording, mixing, audio editing, right?
mm.
So many different applications for it, right? You can get into film post production, right? Doing
Wow, yeah.
audio for film, um, which that's a whole nother world all to itself. You know what I mean? But um, if you love film, then that might be a great, kind of transition for you. But
Right.
all of this is just kind of the foundational aspects and tools and things that you would need to know to kind of be like, okay, well, I know, how to do all this stuff now. What direction do I really want to take with it now?
It is nice to hear just just the variety because I
Hmm.
don't think I didn't until you sent me like all the things. I'm like, okay, break this down. Like, what career paths could someone go into
Hmm.
knowing, once they get this knowledge, right? And they start to work on mastering it, those things,
Yeah.
where could they go? Where could it take them? And just kind of like the breakdown, I'm just like, wow. And even as you were saying this, I was thinking of like conferences, right? And and
Podcasts now too, because podcast
the
being really
podcast huge,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So like, wow, that's a big deal, especially in the world that we live in where, everything is digitized, right? So it's all online. The the doors have like burst open with
Mhm.
opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's nice to see where this could all go. So,
And people always need skilled like individuals in this realm. I mean, that's the biggest thing I learned when I really got into touring.
mm,
I saw the difference between a great production and a, kind of crappy one was, oh wow, they got really good engineers over there, or they don't.
wow.
And it doesn't matter how good the artist is, the show is gonna suck because they don't have good people. And so you really become more valuable
Yeah.
sometimes than than the people who are on stage because you're making sure that like everything that they do actually matters.
Mm. It's what would you say was the advan is there an advantage to starting young? Or would you go like, maybe somebody
Uh,
that would, because I mean, I saw you start very
mhm.
young, and I think like just, well, you let me know. You tell me because I
Absolutely, because it's muscle memory, and so
yes.
it gets to a point where I mean I look at it the same way as like trying to get in shape in like your 40s. It's like I
Mm.
would have just did this when I was 20. It would have been it would have been so much easier.
Ooh, right? In pain, shoulders, knees, all the things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of the same concept. It just, the when you're younger, um, you can take on new things just a lot more easily.
Yeah, much more pliable. And I
Mhm.
think that that's a great kind of reason of just like getting started. Like you said, um, the muscle memory.
Yeah,
Like imagine being 18 and now you're like dun, 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 dun. You like turn your head laughing with your friend, and you're just but
yeah,
you're making great music or whatever it is.
yeah.
But I think like just that level of, and then you're looking for that next challenge, right? But
Mhm.
just the level of just confidence, right? Because that's really building that confidence seems like it would just starting young, man. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for what this looks like for young people because yeah, a lot of times, like I don't even know, even it when you were doing that, that I know that your parents believed in you, one, especially your mom. She's like, take it, anything is yours, do it. And so, but I know that there are a lot of teenagers and their parents are like, get off of that thing, like no, you're wasting time or whatever it is, but they don't understand, mainly because of just ignorance, right? They don't understand. Um, but we even live in a world now. I don't feel like you could have said it before back then either, but especially now where the floodgates have opened for
Mhm.
opportunities, um, with sound engineering, and like even hearing you talk about, how you learned live playback engineering.
Right.
And obviously it was super fast because you had all of the previous
Mhm.
knowledge and skills and just years of just honing in the skill set. Um, man, how do you think a middle school student would do, who might be interested in joining but may not have the experience? And obviously they don't have to have experience, but sometimes like that mental
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
capacity for
Right.
understanding.
Right.
How do you think like a middle school student would do with the program, or would you prefer it would more of a high school age?
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally I'm thinking like 13 to 19, but
Okay.
obviously, that's not like written in stone, right? So, I
Right.
mean, you got a 12-year-old who you see is like really serious about it and really wants to learn, like, yeah. you know, I think it can work. Like I don't think it's one of those things that you just don't know, you know.
Right. So there are no like prerequisites to
Mm-mm.
start the program. They could just start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to parents who want to encourage their kids to explore music production or audio engineering?
Yeah, I think even if obviously the career um like possibilities, potential is there. I mean, like I can give an example of there was a kid who is a grown man now, but when I met him, he was 16, right? And so he used to come to our studio, the studio we had in Detroit, and he would just come in and just hang out. He would just sit and just kind of watch us work on stuff, and he would play us some of his music, and we would work with him on stuff, and but mostly he would just kind of sit and watch, and he would just ask me questions. He like, how do
Mm,
you do that? Or how'd you do that? And a couple years later, I looked up and like he was, I mean, 18 years old now, finished high school, and he was like working already full time as a music producer, just locally in
wow.
Detroit. Like he was making enough money to live just selling beats to like local artists and working with artists and being in the studio all the time. And he ended up a few years after that, I think he was 22. He ended up um, getting a couple of like he produced a couple of like songs that went like hit Billboard charts. And one of these record labels ended up giving him like 300 grand, you know,
Wow.
to sign as a producer to their label. And I think he was like 22 or 23 at the most. I would consider him to be someone who was like supremely talented. And
Mm,
he started really young, you know what I mean? And so
right.
that's obviously in the realm of possibility. But even if you're someone who doesn't want to do this for a living, like music is a form of therapy, in my opinion, right? There's something very soothing and calming about being able to express yourself in that way. It's same as like sitting down and like painting a picture. If that's a talent that you
Hmm.
have, or even if you're not talented, you just do it, because you enjoy the process. Like, you know, it's a form of expression, and sometimes there's uh things that we can't really express with words. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so music, I think, gives us the ability to express those parts of ourselves, whether that be through a song or just through a piece of music. You know what I mean? And so I think just from like a mental health like perspective, like it can just do wonders in that aspect.
Yeah. So I guess, man, I would encourage parents because it sounds just hearing that like this young man's journey to like he was
Mhm.
inquisitive. Like he wanted to know, like to push your kids to ask more questions and to dig deeper and like
Yeah.
be around people who are doing the thing that they want to do, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's pretty cool. Wow. That's pretty awesome. So what would you say was your ultimate goal for your students who complete the program?
Hmm. Um, my approach to teaching in general is just to give um a foundation. Like my whole thing is I'm big on creativity and I'm big on originality, right? And so the slogan for the school is building the bridge between creative expression and technical expertise, right? Because
Mhm.
that's a gap, right? So you may have creativity that you want to express, but you don't know how to do anything. So it's like, well,
Right.
what do I do? I just got all this stuff, right? Um, and so I just want to give a technical foundation that a student can build from there if they choose to, right? In whatever way they choose to do it. Um, it just kind of removes some of the barriers between you and your creativity.
I love that. I love that. And can I just say, like the level of patience that I see you have, um, is always been pretty spectacular.
Mhm.
it's a gift, really. Even seeing you with like our kids when they were little and
Mhm.
now, to see like there's a level of patience. You're just calmly explaining to them, whether it was a game or you're teaching them how to box or teach it, whatever it was, like, or just tell they're asking a question about something, you just patiently explain to them,
Mhm.
and teach them like what break it down, like this is this, it does like this. What can I see? Yeah, here, like um I love that. And I can only imagine like when you're I'm a little jealous of your students. Like I can only imagine like the level of just expertise that they're getting from you, as a really patient teacher. Like that's what you're looking for in someone that's trying to educate you in something, that they're
Mhm.
patient, right, with as you're learning, and thorough, and then not afraid to repeat themselves. No, like, no, let's try it again like this.
Mhm.
And I've seen that in you, so I'm excited, just for all that you're about to do. And man, so how can families purchase your course? Obviously, we'll put the link for the course down there below
Mhm.
in the description box. But where else can they go to purchase the course?
So 87soundacademy.com is the website, and that'll give an overview of the program. Um, we do, I think you mentioned earlier, we do a self-paced kind of pathway and then an instructor-led pathway. So there's two different uh, options to take the course. Self-paced obviously is going to be available at any time. And so the self-paced is actually available and live right now. The first instructor-led course is going to begin January 13th, right? And
Okay.
so in the instructor-led course, it's the same outline as a self-paced. It'll just, the difference is that I'll do, I believe, 4 live group sessions. So essentially, every couple of weeks, I'll do a live group session with the students where we go over all the material, and they can ask me questions, and we can kind of dive a little bit deeper into certain topics, right? Um,
Nice.
yeah.
So what if you have a student that's not between the ages of 13 and 19, and they want to, this is not for me. I'm not asking for a friend. This is like,
Hmm.
but like really, if there's someone, do you feel like this is still an opportunity for them to jump in, or, um, yeah, obviously the focus for these courses are for, um, that teenage age range.
Yeah, I would just encourage the parents to reach out. Just shoot us an email. The email is academy@87sound.com. And
Okay.
so you can shoot us an email and just kind of, we can talk about it and just see if it makes sense. I mean, like I had a one-on-one student who was, I believe, 19, or no, she was 20 actually. I think she had gotten held back because of some like health issues or something. And so she
Hmm.
was still finishing high school.
Yeah.
And so a situation like that, like, yeah, we would allow someone like that to be a part of the program too. You know what I mean? So, um,
Nice. Well, y'all know where y'all can purchase the course. It's in the description below. We've got our affiliate link below, and you can also just go straight to, the site and purchase the course. Look over the overview, as Jason said. And man, I hope you all got just some good information. I felt like I learned a ton. Um, Even though I read everything you sent me, right? I learned. I'm just like, wow, it's crazy, just because, it's like a rabbit hole, right?
mm,
And so, you start off watching a video, watching this guy, do his sound engineering and sound production, and then Lord knows where you're at by then. But
mm.
yeah, this was the rabbit hole. So I hope you all enjoyed chatting with Jay, and getting more information on 87 Sound Academy, and get your kids signed up. As he stated, the self-led course you can start right now, and then his instructor-led course starts January 13th. So
But you can
hope you
sign up
all.
for the instructor-led course now.
Oh, so they can still sign up right
Yeah,
now
you can still sign up
for
and
that.
purchase it now. Yeah, but it won't
Oh,
start
great.
till
Okay.
January. Yeah.
So do it all, y'all. Whatever you think is would benefit your child the most. definitely go ahead and have a look and see. Don't forget to like and share this video with people that you think would enjoy this. And we will see you in the next video. Thanks for joining us, Jay.
Thanks for having me. Love you.
Love you too.